Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cutting through all the noise in the pet food aisle to talk about one of the biggest and, let's be honest, most confusing trends out there, grain-free cat food.
So, let's just dive right in. Is this whole grain-free thing a sign of a genuinely healthier diet for your cat? Or is it just some really clever marketing designed to get you to open your wallet? We're going to find out.
And, this quote really gets to the absolute core of the whole thing. It's so easy to forget, but underneath all that fluff and those cute little toe beans, you're sharing your home with a finely tuned predator. Their biology is still wired for a diet of meat, not a field of corn.
Okay, so let's start where most of the confusion really begins, the bag itself. We're going to look right past all those flashy claims on the front and bust the biggest myth of them all.
All right, myth number one. This is probably the biggest reason people reach for that grain-free bag. It just feels intuitive, right? Take out the grains, you take out the carbs. But, well, the reality is a little more complicated than that.
And this slide shows you exactly what's going on. See, to make that dry kibble, you need starches to bind it all together. So when companies take out ingredients like corn and wheat, they have to replace them with something. And what do they use? Other high-carb plant starches, peas, potatoes, lentils. The wild part is, a lot of grain-free foods can actually have more carbs than the regular grain-inclusive ones.
And this is precisely why all those carbs matter. Cats are what we call obligate carnivores. That's a scientific way of saying they have to eat meat to survive. Unlike us or even dogs, their bodies just aren't built to handle a ton of carbohydrates. They literally lack the key enzymes in their saliva to even start breaking down starches. So a high-carb diet is just fundamentally fighting against their own biology.
Okay, on to myth number two. Now this one seems so logical. The ingredients are listed by weight, so whatever's first must be what's in there the most. Simple, right? But there's a common industry trick that can make this label really misleading.
And here is exactly how they do it. It's called ingredient splitting. So instead of just listing peas, which might weigh more than the chicken, they break it up. They list pea protein, pea flour, and whole peas as separate items. Individually, they each weigh less than the meat, so the meat gets that coveted #1 spot. But if you were to add all those pea ingredients back together, yeah, the plant matter would often be the real main ingredient.
And listen, this isn't just a sneaky labeling trick. It's really important to understand that this has real nutritional consequences. See, all those split plant ingredients can seriously compromise the quality of the food. Plant protein just isn't the same as animal protein for a cat. It's harder for them to digest, and it's missing some absolutely critical amino acids, like taurine, which is non-negotiable for their health.
Okay, so with that background, let's tackle two of the biggest health scares you've probably heard about. We're going to separate the scary headlines from what the science actually says.
So, does grain-free food cause heart disease in cats? A few years back, this was a massive headline. The idea was that these diets were linked to a serious heart condition called dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM. And, it understandably caused a whole lot of panic among cat owners.
But here's what the veterinary consensus tells us today, specifically for cats. First, there's no proven direct link. Historically, DCM in cats has pretty much always been tied to a taurine deficiency. So the real risk isn't the grain-free label itself. It's the formulas that are so packed with peas and lentils, especially in the top 3 ingredients, that they might actually interfere with how your cat absorbs that crucial taurine.
All right, myth number 3. This is probably the #1 reason people switch to grain-free. Your cat is itching and scratching, maybe has an upset stomach, and you think, aha, it must be a grain allergy. But the research, it points to a very different culprit.
And just look at this. When you actually look at the veterinary studies on food allergies in cats, the most common offenders are the proteins. Chicken is the big one, by a long shot. True grain allergies, they are incredibly rare, like a tiny fraction of all cases. So switching your itchy cat from a grain-inclusive chicken food to a grain-free chicken food, well, you can see how that might not solve the problem at all.
So if grain-free isn't the magic answer, and reading the label is so tricky, how on earth are you supposed to pick a good food? Let's try to build a better framework for this.
Instead of just getting obsessed with one single buzzword, let's think about your cat's specific needs. This table is a great way to look at it. The best food is totally relative. Is your cat struggling with weight? A food like Dr. Elzie's, which is super low in carbs, might be perfect. Got a fussy eater on your hands? Something like Instinct Original has a raw coating on the kibble that makes it way more appealing. The point is, you choose the food based on the goal you're trying to achieve. Okay, so you've used this framework, you've picked out what you think is the right food. There's just one last absolutely crucial piece to making this whole thing a success.
You have to remember, a cat's digestive system can be really sensitive. Just switching their food cold turkey is basically a recipe for an upset stomach. It doesn't matter how amazing the new food is, you've got to transition slowly, over about 10 days, just like you see here. You gradually increase the amount of new food and decrease the old. It just gives their system time to adjust.
So when you boil it all down, what are the big takeaways? First, grain-free does not mean low carb. Second, become a label detective and watch out for that ingredient splitting trick. Third, remember that protein allergies are way more common than grain allergies. And finally, choose a food based on what your cat actually needs, not just what's trendy.
So the real question is this. Now that you know how to read the label, what is your cat's food really telling you? You've got the tools now. You can look right past the marketing buzzwords and the pretty bags, and you can make a truly informed choice for that tiny, finely tuned predator that's currently napping on your couch.